Welcome aboard the cosmic journey that is the Spirituality with Ashley podcast, where we dive deep into the mystical realms of metaphysics and spirituality. I'm your host, Ashley, a certified Akashic Records reader and energy healer and trained psychic medium. You're in the right place if you're ready to expand your consciousness and unlock the wisdom and insights that light up our path of self-discovery and growth. If you enjoy the show, please give it a 5-star rating and share it with friends and family. Come along with me on this journey of exploration where the universe speaks and we listen with open hearts. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful souls. So happy to be back. It's only been a week. I said that like I've been gone. Nope, I put out an episode last Monday. In today's episode, however, we're going to be exploring the fascinating journey that we all love of developing your intuition and psychic skills. I'm so here for it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. We'll cover essential topics like shadow work, personal development, inner child healing, managing the ego, acknowledging and releasing trauma, nervous system regulation, and reprogramming subconscious beliefs. We're also going to discuss how each of us can uniquely manifest stronger intuition. So let's get into it. So let's just go ahead and start by defining what we mean by intuition and psychic development. Intuition is that inner knowing, the ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning or logic. It doesn't have to make sense. It's like this inner voice or feeling or inner guide that helps us to make decisions and to understand the world around us. Psychic development, on the other hand, refers to enhancing our extrasensory perceptions, our senses outside of our 5 main senses: taste, touch, smell, hearing, seeing. So these extrasensory perceptions are clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, seeing visions, or seeing movies; clairaudience, which is clear hearing, which is where you can hear, like your intuitive messages come through as like almost like thoughts in your head. Or sometimes people can actually like hear energies. And other psychic abilities like claircognizance, which is clear knowing, which is where you get downloads. You just know. It's like information just drops into your head. You just know it, you get it, you understand it. What are some other ones? Clair smelling, clair tasting. These are also clair senses. Did I miss any? Hearing, seeing, knowing, feeling, clairsentience. How did I leave clairsentience out? That's one of my that's one of my jams. Yeah, and clairsentience, clear feeling. Whew. All right, which is where you'll feel sensations in your body. It's just, I don't even really like to explain these gifts past what the actual sense is because we all experience them in such different ways. So I don't really want to say like clear feeling and then somebody experiences it in a feeling way, but different from the way that I describe it. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but essentially, that's what psychic development is. It's enhancing those extra sensory perceptions. And both intuition and psychic development are deeply interconnected and can be developed with practice and awareness. And I kind of want to say that psychic development or psychic abilities are like the way that your intuition is uniquely expressed for you as an individual, because we all are intuitive. Excuse me, we're all intuitive and psychic. We all just also have varying levels of development and natural propensities for specific skills to be stronger. So while we all have intuition, it's just going to show up differently for us. And same thing for our psychic abilities, and they are linked. Like I just said, I was about to repeat myself. I've been on a thing lately where I just want to like over explain, and we're not here for it. Not here for it. Part of my healing journey. All right, speaking of healing journeys, what a great segue into the first thing that we're going to be talking about. So, I actually really wanted to start by talking about shadow work now that we've defined what intuition and psychic abilities are so that we can all get on the same page. So, I go through periods where I'm always talking about shadow work. Lately, I think my favorite topic is actually self-awareness, which, drum roll please, is enhanced by, you guessed it, shadow work. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about for the next little while. We're going to discuss the different aspects of yourself, of things that you can do and work on, work through. A lot of it is very healing journey, associated to your healing journey. And we're just going to touch on some of these things because they really, really do. It's so funny. You know what? I'm getting off script and I'm going to stay on script because I have a long one. We have a lot to get through. So I'm not even gonna, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So shadow work is essentially self-awareness practice. It's the exploration of the unconscious parts of our personality that our conscious ego part of us doesn't really readily identify. Hence, shadow. It's darker, it's sometimes just kind of there and not really being noticed, but it exists nonetheless. And it can really reveal a lot about how we process things and who we are. So the shadow aspects of ourselves can include hidden fears, trauma, suppressed emotions, and by identifying these things, shining a light on them, and then confronting and integrating them, or I kind of want to say accepting them, we can clear blockages that hinder our intuition. I also like to explain this in the way that it was helpful for me to experience it. So when I started focusing on shadow work and self-awareness instead of just clearing my crown chakra and charging my third eye chakra and practicing intuition exercises like that, like I had no idea that my healing journey played such a huge role in my intuition. I thought it was all separate. I thought they were two totally different things. And so when I really started reflecting and bringing some of my shadows to light, it helped me to understand myself better, how I think, why I think, and do the things I do. And when you're really familiar with your thought patterns and processes, your biases and your prejudices, it's a lot easier to recognize them when they're popping up. Because these are human things, and our physical human bodies aren't going to just get rid of our shadows. They're a part of us. And so we're understanding them and accepting them and getting to know them, getting to know ourselves so that it's easier to distinguish between our conscious, logical, egoic brain and the intuitive insights from our higher self, our guides, or in other energies. It just helps us to differentiate between these because it can be very confusing when you're developing your intuition. Like, was that my thought or was that my higher self? Was that like one of my guides? Was that like, what was that? And so the more you get to know your inner world, the easier it is for you to recognize, like, oh, this is my brain. This is me thinking this. This isn't an intuitive thought. This is me. It's based on my emotions and my experiences. So, as always, you know I'm here for a good tip or two. So let's put this knowledge into action. When you're doing shadow work, it's helpful to start with simple exercises like journaling about your triggers and emotions, reflect on your responses, and then try to understand the root causes. And it's way easier said than done. I recognize this. I've done it. I've been through it. I'm still going through it. It is a marathon, a lifelong marathon, not a sprint. And it can be really triggering, honestly. Like going into your triggers could be very triggering. And if you're feeling defensive about it, totally normal. Not wanting to do it, totally normal. Feeling really uncomfortable, totally normal. Let's just accept it and move through that. Oh my gosh, it's so tough to recognize. First of all, just to recognize that you're having an emotional reaction and then to stop and be like, but why? Instead of just wallowing in your feels. Oh my God. Ugh, it can feel so good to just harp on an emotion and then blame an external person or place or thing rather than taking responsibility. But I digress. Back to what I was saying. So, journal, reflect, and understand the root causes. And I make no promises that this is going to be easy, as I'm sure many of you know, but it's so incredibly rewarding because it brings so much clarity and it really does enhance your intuitive abilities. And I can speak to that firsthand because it has helped me so much. Like I said, I had no idea my healing journey was like the golden brick road to my intuition just really opening up and taking flight. So up next is personal development and growth, another one of my favorites. All this is my favorite. That's why I'm talking about it. I'm probably going to continue to point out that it's my favorite, but still. So honestly, shadow work really does fall under the umbrella of personal development and growth, but I really wanted to give a specific shout out to shadow work because we know each other very well. Personal development, much like shadow work, is a lifelong journey of continuous learning and self-improvement. And it is super important for sharpening our intuitive skills. Developing a deep understanding of yourself through self-awareness practices like journaling, mindfulness, and setting growth-oriented goals can significantly enhance our connection to our intuition. How to implement this, you ask? No worries, I've got you. Again, I think if this podcast is going to be a drinking game, I think journaling would be one of the triggers for taking a drink. This is not a drinking game. I'm not saying we should do that. I don't know why that popped into my head, but I was just like, man, I say that a lot. Daily journaling. It's so helpful for introspection. And that is one of the ways that you can implement the whole personal development and growth part of this, where you reflect on your thoughts and experiences. It can be super, super helpful. And I'm not like a journal every day kind of person, which I'm pretty sure I say later on in the episode, but you can also incorporate like mindfulness practices like meditation and staying present and attuned to your inner guidance. So just really paying attention, just doing a lot of observation without judgment. And that's going to come up again too, because that's so important. Just observing so that you can get to know yourself, get familiar with your thoughts and how they sound and how they feel, because your intuition, your higher self, is going to sound different. It's going to feel different. And it's a slight difference at first, but once you get used to it, you can actually really notice the difference between your higher self, your guides, the different energies, you. So surrounding yourself with other growth-minded people who are actively working on their own personal development can also be super helpful. I have a few people who I love, oh my gosh, just having deep philosophical and psychological conversations with, because we learned so much about ourselves and about each other and about humans and people and how the brain works and why we do certain things that we do. It's just so much fun. I love it. My analytical brain is just living its best life when we're having these conversations. But you know what? I've noticed that they've helped to grow my intuition, because my intuition will come in and I'll start channeling some wisdom. And I'm just like, whoa, I don't know where that came from. So that is another practice, just having deep conversations with people you trust who are at that level with you and are down to do it. I've grown so much just by doing that, because I'm not a journal every day kind of person right now. Sometimes I am, but it's been a long time since I've done that. So if you're not a journaler, there are tons of other ways to focus on your personal development and growth. Therapy, coaching, workbooks, self-help books, TikTok. And that's not in my script, but I felt like throwing it in. I learn a lot from TikTok. Let's not throw shade at TikTok. There's some good stuff on there. I mean, fact check your junk, do your own research, but hey, it's a great jumping off point. And setting goals. Setting goals is also really helpful, obviously, for personal development and growth. Setting a specific goal, especially for your personal growth and development, and then regularly reviewing and celebrating your progress are also really important, because we can definitely get stuck in this cycle of like, oh, I'm just on to the next thing. What am I improving? What am I improving? And then what's the next thing? And like, it's still important to take stock of how far you've come and where you're at each juncture. So set a goal, get to that goal. Even if you don't get to the goal, just making progress. Like, hey, today, instead of just emotionally reacting, I noticed that I had this emotion that I was uncomfortable with. And instead of just writing it out and continuing the conversation, I stopped for a second, I took a breath, and I thought about what the emotion was. Like, that's progress, even if it didn't completely stop your emotional reaction. Like, if you weren't doing that before and stopping to be like, hey, I'm having an emotional reaction, just stopping to do that is still progress. So make sure you're taking time to recognize, acknowledge, and celebrate your progress. Don't get stuck in the cycle of like, oh, I'm just healing, I'm just working on the next thing. It's just the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. That sets you up to feel unsatisfied and unfulfilled. You're always chasing. Chasing is not being receptive. And this whole podcast episode is about being receptive so that you can enhance your intuition, so that you can develop your psychic abilities. That is receptivity. Okay, healing the inner child. You know, we can't leave out inner child work, or maybe I should say inner child healing. Healing our inner child is a process of recognizing and addressing the needs and wounds of our younger selves. Our inner child influences our present behaviors and emotional responses, much like unconscious programs that influence our choices. Same, essentially. So by healing past wounds, we create space for more clarity and a deeper connection to our intuition. You can work with your inner child through visualization exercises. I've done a few inner child sessions with a few different people, and they each have their own approach. And it didn't even matter because they were all incredibly powerful sessions, very enlightening, very healing. It really helped me. And I moved forward, like using what I gained from those experiences. If I'm being honest, which I really try to be, they were amazing. It was so good. And like I avoided doing inner child work for so long because I have a lot of childhood trauma and I was just scared to like open it up and address it. I thought I wasn't going to be able to handle it. But I am one step at a time, one layer at a time. I don't have to like pull off the full band-aid. So if you want to do it on your own, you can imagine a safe space where you can meet your inner child and then interact with them in a nurturing way, address their needs, start a dialogue, and reassure them that they're loved and acknowledged. And this can be really healing and help you to release old patterns, which can really open up your intuitive channels. And we'll talk a little more about that as we get into the episode. Up next, we have the ego, my fave. Not really, but kinda. I do love talking about the ego because it's such it's a big part of us. And the ego, I don't know why I have a weird accent when I'm saying it today, but the ego isn't a bad guy. It's just it gets in the way while we're doing things sometimes. Like the ego gets in the way while it's doing its job very well sometimes. Like the ego is so good at what it does. And sometimes it's great and helpful, and sometimes it gets in the way. Let's be honest. So the ego is responsible for shaping our identity and our perceptions, which is really important. We are people, we have identities, and we have our own perceptions. It's an important part of being us, but an unbalanced ego can cloud our intuitive insights and be a hindrance rather than a helpful tool. So it's important to manage the ego through practices like meditation, self-reflection, and self-awareness practices, or maybe we should say ego awareness practices, whatever floats your boat. A practice you can try is spending a few minutes each minutes. What kind of accent do I have today? I don't even know. I could just put on one so that I'm not accidentally using a weird accent and just like really own it. I'm not even going to do it though. Okay, so spending a few minutes each day, just sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment. Then once you've created a practice around non-judgmental observation, which is a way to get to know yourself and your mind, then once you've gotten used to doing that and that's familiar, then begin reflecting on your actions, your choices, your motivations, and identify when the ego is popping in and influencing you. Are you making the choice because you're scared of the uncertainty on the other side of that choice? So you want to stick with what you know? Ego. Or maybe you're avoiding doing something because it's difficult and your ego is giving you all the reasons for why you should just do the safer thing, like staying home and isolating instead of going out and socializing and meeting new people and trying new things and connecting. Ego. By becoming aware of the ego, we can better manage the impact that it has on our thought processes, our choices, and our actions. And we can prevent it from overshadowing or getting in the way of our intuition and confusing us. Because that's really the confusing part. When you're trying to tap into your intuition, and I mean commonly the most confusing part, there are lots of confusing things that come with developing your intuition and psychic abilities. But just for the purposes of this, the overarching confusing thing is like, well, how do I know it's my intuition and not me talking to myself? And so when you're able to pinpoint your ego, that is so helpful for distinguishing between your higher self and your human. Like, which one is it popping through right now? Which one is it popping in right now? Popping through? I guess you'd say that. Anyway, on to the next one, trauma, the internet's favorite word. I'm just kidding, but seriously though. Trauma all over the place. We all have it. So, I mean, of course it's going to be all over the place. Like everyone has trauma. Everyone has emotional baggage. We pick things up. So, unresolved trauma can really block our intuitive abilities. And I'm not saying it's going to shut you off. Oh, the trauma logs for my soul. And despite that, like, just because you have trauma doesn't mean you're not going to be able to develop your intuition. It doesn't mean you're not intuitive. We're all intuitive. We're all psychic. Like, it's just a matter of how it's expressed for you. And the more healing you do, the more you allow yourself to release the trauma, the stronger your intuition will get. But you still have intuition, even if you have trauma. So I don't want anyone to listen to this and be like, oh no, is that why I don't? You do. You do have intuition. So stop questioning yourself. Stop it. And we're actually going to talk about some affirmations you can use because you are intuitive. Your intuition does work. It is not shut off, it's not shut down. Even if you have blocks and trauma and all the gunky stuff, which we're also going to talk about, you still have a connection to your higher self. Your soul is only partially incarnated into this physical form. There's a larger part of you. I think it's weird that I said that. Anyway, there's a part of you that's still in soul form that is outside of this body. So your trauma is not who you are. It is not blocking you. It does not cut you off. That is a choice. You not being connected to your soul self or your divinity, that God spark in you, that is a choice, whether you're making it consciously or unconsciously. So, anyway, back to what I was saying. Oh, we love the sidebars. Okay, so unresolved trauma can block our intuitive abilities. And there's so many ways to work through trauma. Some popular healing modalities are talk therapy, EMDR, somatic processing, and other holistic approaches that can help to release these blockages. I also want to include Akashic Records clearings and the emotion code and other energy healing and release modalities like Reiki are also really helpful. And I've personally used all of these things that I just mentioned and witnessed transformations in others also who have used all of these modalities as well. And just for clarity, I know not everybody knows what somatic healing or somatic experiencing therapy is, or EMDR. So I wanted to talk about it for a second, just to, clarify. Same page, all about being on the same page. So, somatic experiencing therapy is a body-focused approach to healing trauma and stress by gently guiding individuals to release and resolve physical tension and restore their natural capacity for self-regulation. And I work with a somatic coach right now, Katie Emmett, shout out. She's great. And she is helping me to, well, okay, so the body stores trauma. There's a book about it. Um, Kind of like trapped energy and stuff. And so as you have the trauma, the wounding, the trapped energy, whatever, however you want to describe it, you can feel the tension. It can create aches and pains, it can create illness. And so when you're doing somatic therapy techniques, what I'm doing with Katie, like the work that we're doing is I'm learning to process my emotions and I'm learning to not only process my emotions by feeling them, but I'm also allowing my body to process and release these emotions. So we do like, she coaches me through and keeps me accountable for like emotion release exercises, like allowing myself to feel anger and feeling okay with feeling anger and not judging myself for being angry and then feeling the anger and allowing myself to express it in a healthy way. So I'll like punch a pillow or I'll scream into a pillow. Dancing is really great for somatic exercises. There's so many like ways to do somatic experiencing therapy. So the way that I just described is one way. I've seen a lot of content about it, like putting your hand on your chest and I think tapping like EFT, where you're like tapping certain points. I feel like that's also a technique for somatic therapy because it's basically a body physical focused way of processing and releasing energy. Okay. And I'm not a somatic like expert by any means, so I hope that made sense. If you are a somatic expert listening to this and I said something weird, like please message me and be like, actually, this, and this. I'm totally here for it because I want to learn. I'm not an expert. I don't know all the things. Okay, and EMDR, which I also mentioned as one of the modalities, is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a really long statement. It's basically, so I did this when I was married. I went to counseling for a little while, and one of my counselors that I worked with, we did this for some childhood trauma that I was working with through. And there's some sexual abuse there, and I had this memory that was just very prominent, and it bothered me a lot because it would just kind of pop up out of nowhere, and I didn't, it was very intrusive and then emotionally draining and uncomfortable. And that's not what this is about, but I wanted to set the context for this. So when you do EMDR, it's like these rapid hand movements, kind of like one of those little pendulum things where the ball swings, hits the other ball, kind of like that. But and I think you can do it with light too. My therapist, he used his hand and he just let his hand go back and forth in front of my face. And I had to like stare at his hand so that my eyes would move back and forth, left and right. And then he coaches you through, there's like a certain dialogue, kind of like hypnosis, but it wasn't hypnosis. I was totally awake. Like I've been hypnotized. I know what that feels like. And this is different. And that he says certain things to you and like leads you through. And so you go back to that memory or you pull that memory up, and then you kind of reframe the memory, which is really interesting. And so it takes away some of that emotional impact that the memory is having on you that's causing it to be painful and traumatic. Anyway, it's very interesting. So that's what EMDR is: eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Very technical term. EMDR. And I actually also want to share another personal story about what I've been doing to enhance my intuition and psychic abilities. As many of you know, I can be very extra. I, my Aries aspect loves to just cannonball into the pool of whatever I'm focusing on. And while I've gone the counseling and traditional therapy route and I find them helpful, I've noticed that there's a particular combination that has helped me. And I've personally been going into my Akashic records since before my mom passed to help me with like inner child healing and to understand how I was showing up in that relationship with my mom. And the insights that I received on multiple occasions, and not just about my relationship with my mom, but just everything I was going in there for to work through my healing and personal development and growth and all of that stuff combined. So the insights I received on multiple occasions, combined with somatic therapy and therapy with a licensed social worker, and a ton of continuous self-reflection through conversations with my people and really digging into the root causes of my emotional reactions and why I think and act the way that I do has been immensely life-changing. Like when I tell you that self-reflection, I've honestly only been working with a somatic coach and the therapist, the licensed therapist for the last 2 months. Um, so they're actually the newer modalities that I've added because I was like, we're doing this. Like I've avoided it for way too long. And it's just the combination of everything is so good. I have accountability from like every aspect of it. But like I said, I'm extra. Um, so yeah, a ton of the self-reflection is what I'm noticing. Gosh, but I think it took me a while to get to the point where I was able to handle the self-reflection. So I had to kind of baby step my way into it. And now I'm just like full force, like, let's go. I'm feeling emotional. Reflect. What's going on? Um, oh man. And it's wild to think about how quickly you can make changes just by committing to really keeping yourself accountable, which is why I'm loving working with coaches and constantly choosing to acknowledge triggers and then reflect on why they're happening and what's causing them, and then asking yourself the questions and then spending the time answering them. Then, as you move forward, well, you or I realized that it became almost automatic for me to be like, oh, I'm feeling super irritated. Why? Because this person said this thing to me that I don't agree with. Well, why do I care about their opinion? Would I care about their opinion if what they said didn't ring true to some extent for me? Or maybe it's bringing up something else that I'm trying to avoid. So I'm feeling anxious and then blah, blah, blah. And it just goes on and on and on. And so I kind of started doing this because I was really angry and miserable in my 9 to 5. I was going through some situations. I really feel like it was the universe like, hey, you're outgrowing this. But in any case, I'm very stubborn. And I was like, no, this is how I make money and support myself. I have to like, ooh, that societal pressure. Um, and it was just so helpful for me to do all of that self-awareness work and reflecting and like um really digging into my triggers and why I thought and felt and acted the way that I did. And it was so helpful because it allowed me to respond rather than react emotionally. I got so much more out of reflecting and responding rather than emotionally reacting and dwelling in my feels. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm human. I still dwelled in my feels. I still emotionally reacted. I still had breakdowns. I still had to take breaks and go scream into a pillow sometimes because I was so angry and irritated. But it was super helpful. And I noticed the transformation over time. And yeah, I'm still working on it, but what I'm saying is it's been really helpful and very impactful. And as I did this real life work with my emotions and like, I'm not here like working on my chakras directly. I'm like dealing with my emotions in real life. We're being very grounded about this. And I started making leaps and bounds in the last year with my intuition and psychic abilities. Like they skyrocketed. And I mean, we're going to talk about it a little later too, but I really creating consistent practices around them, around like developing your intuition and psychic abilities, in addition to healing and focusing on, regulating your nervous system and processing your emotions and, releasing trauma and stuff. That is all so, so, so helpful and impactful. My intuition and my psychic abilities increased in accuracy. I started being able to actually notice changes in my behavior. And the more that I did all that, the more connected I felt to my higher self, to my spirit team. Like the easier it was to connect. Like all the rituals I used to do, I don't have to do those anymore. Like anything also part of that is just from practice. Like it's a skill. Connecting, intuition, it's all a skill. It comes very easy to some people. Other people really have to practice and work at it, kind of like playing basketball. Not everybody can play basketball. Not everybody's going to be a talented basketball athlete who gets paid an inordinate amount of money to do it, but we can all play basketball. And that's kind of how intuition and psychic abilities are. All right, so some of us have to work a little harder than others. Some of us have to work a lot harder. And some of us don't really have to work at it at all. And that is just the way the cookie crumbles. All right. So I really went in on that one. I was not meaning to. Okay, so we have a few more points to hit. I'm gonna just touch on them because they also have been really pivotal in my intuition development journey. And I think I've already touched on almost all of them. I just want to actually like give them their space in this episode. So I've also heard the same thing from others as far as like these things playing a role, which is why I'm mentioning all of the stuff that I'm mentioning today. Okay, so the next one is nervous system regulation. Plays a huge role in enhancing your intuition. It is key, honestly, when it comes to enhancing your intuition and your psychic gifts. I repeat, a regulated nervous system is essential for heightened intuition, not for being intuitive, but to heighten, enhance your intuition, regulate your nervous system. Telling you right now. I remember hearing about this when I was already doing readings for people and stuff, and I was like, man, my nervous system is shot. I was still able to do readings and stuff, but I noticed as I started actually taking steps to regulate my nervous system and calm it down and do all the things that there was a huge uptick in the way that my intuition and psychic abilities were operating. So good. Okay, so there are, again, tons of ways and techniques to regulate your nervous system. I started drinking less coffee, sometimes no caffeine or alcohol at all, and spending more time doing peaceful, restful, relaxing activities, more breath work, and just focusing on taking real, full, deep breaths and not tensing my muscles 24/7. When I tell you I go to bed and like I have to actually consciously release my butt muscles, like those junks are just clenched. I'm so used to just tensing everything up all the time. And I mean, I'm sure it doesn't help that like I work out all the time. And so I'm actually clenching my butt on purpose and like consciously when I'm working out. But the rest of the day, I'm not consciously tensing up my butt. And so it's wild when I go to bed at night and I'm lying there and I'm like, why does my back hurt? And then I let my butt muscles go and I'm like, holy crap. Why am I holding that so tightly? Anyway, there are other techniques you can try as well, like yoga, which would probably really help me with not tensing up all my butt muscles, and grounding exercises, which can help you to feel more balanced, which leads to improved emotional stability and, you guessed it, intuitive clarity, because we love some clarity with the intuition enhancement. That's part of it, honestly. So basically doing things that calm your nervous system rather than rev it up. That's it. That's what you do to calm your nervous system. I am so helpful. I know. Just kidding. I'm going to get a little more into that. So think relaxing instead of overexerting, slow over rushed or fast, listening to your body's signals rather than pounding coffee and energy drinks, mindful breathing, allowing yourself to process and release emotions and stuck energy. All of these examples are of practices that calm the nervous system, which create the perfect environment for connecting more deeply with your intuition. If your mind is clouded by a million thoughts from overanalyzing and logicking your way through everything and intellectualizing your issues rather than actually processing the emotions behind them and then changing your choices and behavior patterns, and you're not exactly creating the most effective space or any space at all to be silent and receive insights. Regulating your nervous system helps you to be more receptive and open rather than tense and stressed and rushed and busy, and the list goes on. You get what I'm trying to say. So regulate your nervous system. It helps a lot. All that to say, just regulate it. Okay. I can't believe I left this for last. Oh my gosh. I mean, we have a few more points, but this is the last, like, this is a healing thing that really helps. So, subconscious beliefs and reprogramming. Oh, it's one of my all-time favorite techniques for deepening intuition and developing your psychic gifts. I can talk subconscious beliefs and reprogramming all day. All day. Okay. So, I'm just going to say it. Our subconscious beliefs shape our intuitive abilities. Period. I'm just kidding. There's more to it than that, but like our subconscious beliefs play a huge role in shaping our intuitive abilities. Reprogramming and rewiring your brain, cleaning out unconscious beliefs and programming from childhood, from trauma, programming from past lives. The energy can still be with you. Societal pressures, all of that gunk that builds up in and around your channel, in your head, in your energy field, cleaning that stuff out makes room for being able to allow your subconscious to really thrive and allow you to connect at deeper levels. Because your subconscious, you have your ego, you have your conscious mind, and you have your subconscious mind in one school of thought. And that's the one we're sticking with. We're sticking with that one today. And let me make sure I'm keeping my space in my notes. Where are we at? Cleaning stuff out, the gunk that builds up. Okay, it allows you to thrive. So cleaning all of that stuff out makes room for you to be able to allow your subconscious to really thrive. Okay. And so my point was that you have your ego, your conscious, your subconscious. Your ego gets in the way of your intuition. Your ego is part of your human. I mean, one of the ways I've heard it described, which I really liked, was like your ego is there. It's a mechanism to kind of keep your soul in your body so you can actually live your earth life, because we didn't have the ego to like help us to stay safe and remind us and do all the things that the ego does, create our identity and our perceptions. It's really easy for us to like pop out of our bodies and just go back to the soul world when we're like, screw this bullcrap. So the ego is actually very helpful. Our conscious mind, which we're very aware of throughout the day, our decision making, all of that, when we're trying to like analyze things and label and get meaning, assign meaning to things and the world around us, they're all important. And your subconscious is where a lot of things are stored. Your beliefs, your experiences, your fears, the programming, all of that stuff is in your subconscious. It's kind of like your breathing system. It's not something you think about, but it's there. It helps you to live and be alive. Like you're not consciously thinking, I'm going to take in a breath and now I'm going to exhale. It just happens. Same thing with your subconscious. And your subconscious is also how you connect. You channel through your subconscious. So imagine, back to what I was saying, because that subconscious gunk takes energy to store and use. So your subconscious is how you channel, but then that's also where we store all of our junk, all that programming, all of these beliefs. And so it takes up precious space in our channel. And I'm saying it like that to paint a picture. So imagine like an actual pipe, like a giant one underground, or even a straw. Let's go with the straw. Now let's pretend you're shoving wet cotton ball fuzz and like lint pieces, maybe some clay bits or Play-Doh and gum and oil and just shoving dirt in there. You're shoving all this gunk into this tiny straw. Not to say your channel is tiny, but just, I'm painting a picture here. Let's just not be nitpicky. I'm secretly being nitpicky, so I'm really talking to myself. So when you shovel that crap into a straw, it blocks it. Then you can't suck air through it. You're certainly not gonna drink anything through it. It's a tight fit and it's blocked. There's at the very least a bunch of debris that's keeping very much from getting through there. So imagine that gunk is your subconscious crap, like programming and beliefs that aren't serving you. And not only do they take up valuable space, but they also distract you from being able to clearly allow things to flow through your channel. The gunk prevents clarity and receptivity. How are you going to receive things through your channel if there's a bunch of gunk in there, stuck to the walls, clogging your channel artery? That's actually really what I'm thinking of, like cholesterol clogging your arteries. But anyway, so luckily, there are many, many ways to declutter, degrease, or clear out your straw, to clear out subconscious beliefs that aren't helpful or beneficial to you. And some of these methods are hypnosis, Akashic records clearings, affirmations, neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. These are all techniques that can help to create more supportive and clearer or cleaner internal environments for our intuition to flourish. So, practical tip for enhancing your intuition through changing or clearing your subconscious beliefs and reprogramming your brain is to start with positive affirmations. And these positive affirmations are going to reinforce your intuitive abilities. For example, excuse me, you could say, I trust my intuition, or my inner guidance is strong and clear. Regularly repeating something ultimately makes it a belief. That's how you got your beliefs in the first place. Otherwise, it's just a thought. I'm also all about some Akashic Records healing and clearing, which is an awesome place to start, by the way. So just highlighting that. Shameless plug. Hypnosis and subliminal messages can also be really helpful. And subliminal messages are kind of just like if you ever listen to like a hypnosis when you're sleeping at night, kind of like that. Subliminal messages. You're saying something to plant a seed in your subconscious mind, and then that seed, which is planted as a thought, grows. So you're supposed to listen to subliminal messaging like over and over and over. And you can do it for yourself. Like you can create those affirmations, record them, and then listen to them for like, half an hour a day, 20 minutes a day. I don't know. I'm not a subliminal messages expert. I've seen some stuff. I've looked into it a little bit, but that is the idea. And that's the whole purpose of me saying that. It's just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. All right. So now that we've touched on some of the aspects of developing your intuition and psychic abilities, let's talk about how we each have our own unique path to get there. There are also a lot of Oh, I got distracted really quick. Sorry. There are also like a bunch of factors that play a role outside of healing, like your background, your culture, your personal experiences, your personal preferences. So it's really important to acknowledge and embrace these individual differences. Let's not play the comparison game. We all have our own unique gifts and ways of expressing them. I know sometimes we see people who are very talented and we're just like, oh my God, I want to be like that. It seems like your gift is so cool. But like, your gift is cool too. Whatever your gift is and the way you express it is perfect for you. And it's wonderful and it's amazing and you're wonderful and amazing. So embrace that. So find practices, because we're all unique butterflies, find practices that resonate with you, whether it's meditation, creative activities, or nature walks. Follow your unique path to enhancing your intuition. It may be doing tarot readings for yourself, or creating an Akashic Records practice, or studying Reiki or quantum physics. Remember, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's totally okay to explore and discover what works best for you. My path did not start with me wanting to be an Akashic Records reader. I had zero interest. My mom did it, and I was like, I'll just go to her if I have questions and stuff. I think my first certification was actually in Reiki, and it was just the beginning of my path. Well, actually, technically, I was obsessed with meditation and like going on all these cosmic adventures in the quantum field and astral realm. And then Reiki came into the picture a year or two later, and so many other things. So explore your interests, even if they don't make sense. They're all just breadcrumbs leading you down your path. Trust yourself, trust that the universe has your back. All right, guys, let's wrap this up with some practical exercises and practices that you can do daily or maybe even weekly to help strengthen your intuition. If we are being super general, I'd say journaling and reflection, doing meditation and mindfulness exercises can be really helpful. Also, exploring creative outlets like art, dancing, drawing painting, writing, playing music, playing with your fur babies, building something. These can all significantly enhance your intuitive skills. They get you out of your analytical thinking mind and into your creative, expansive, receptive, fluid, flowy, intuitive mind. I think flow state, actually. Love that. Love that. So a practice I really like is a few minutes of grounding and observing your thoughts, or like an energy clearing meditation, like a 5-minute one, and then going into your own Akashic records and free writing whatever comes through, or even pulling a couple of tarot cards and studying the imagery that pops out to you and the feelings that come in as you're looking at the card and thinking about, like, what does this mean? And then looking up the card meanings if you don't already know them and seeing how the messages apply to your life. I also really like the practice of writing down any intuitive insights that you pick up. And I mean, I guess you can call that journaling. You can also just call it writing down an intuitive insight on a sticky note. Like, whatever you want to call it is totally fine. Um, and then going back and reflecting on them after some time has passed. A lot of the time, you'll pick up on stuff and then just forget because you didn't consciously acknowledge it and then like remember that you thought that was going to happen or that this thing popped into your head. So dedicating just a few minutes each day or every other day can really help make a significant difference in the beginning anyway. And creating a routine around it just can be really helpful. And then once you've established that skill, it can grow on its own. But in the beginning, super helpful to establish a routine and really be consistent with it, just to kind of like create your foundation and develop. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. We've gone over so many things. Oh my gosh, I was talking today, from shadow work and personal development to healing, trauma, and reprogramming subconscious beliefs. So after that, here's a friendly reminder that developing intuition is a personal, very unique journey, and it's important to find what resonates with you. So I encourage you to explore the exercises and techniques that came up today. Start small, baby steps, and be patient with yourself. Your intuition is a powerful guide, and I promise you that with practice, you can unlock its full potential and surprise yourself. We really are so much more powerful than we know. So join us next week as we dive into another fascinating topic. I'm not really sure which one it's going to be yet, but I've got a few ideas. I actually have a whole list if we're being transparent. I will also be offering a new service. I spoke about this last week on the podcast. It's a super in-depth Akashic Soul Blueprint reading, Akashic Records Soul Blueprint reading. And I mean super in-depth, like super in depth. The accuracy of these readings is wild. And it's just a ton of information, like your starseed origin, the traits you bring based on that energy, your soul level gifts and purpose, and what they actually look like for you, how you express them, like what the best paths are for you, tips for how to really tap into your gifts and your purpose. And then it also goes into karmic blocks from the past lives and like details and themes and patterns of choices you've been making that carry into this life and affect you now, and present blocks in your current life. It's wild and so fascinating. And I honestly, that's what I really wanted to do the episode today on, but for reasons I'm not going to talk about, I did not, but I will. And then there's like a clearing and healing component where I clear your Akashic record. So I clear all the gunk out of your Akashic record, which helps you and your energy in life. And then you also have a part to play in the clearing, because as a healer, as a reader, I'm really just creating space for you to do it. And so I'm just kind of like setting the stage by clearing the record. And then it's your choice to follow through with the homework for really clearing and moving forward. And it really helps you to move forward with all that without all the energetic baggage. It's so good. And I will be doing a podcast episode all about it. And, I'll announce it on social media and it'll be on the website and stuff with a description and all of that very, very soon, like within the next week or two. And yeah, so it'll be up on the website shortly, within the next week or two, and you'll be able to book sessions within that time period. So seriously, super soon. And just as a heads up, they are very in depth. So I spend a good amount of hours, a few hours, like putting the reading together and getting all the information before meeting with you. So I'm only going to be able to do a certain amount per week. So heads up to anybody listening who might be interested in that. Just keep an eye out for when it comes out and I describe it more and go into more detail about it. So, and if you are interested, I would encourage you to get in on it, just because it does take so long. It's because it is so much more in depth. It just takes a little more time for me to prep for it and get all your information and put it together. So I'm so freaking excited. I just did one of the sessions yesterday and it was astounding. Like, just, I'm still mind blown. Still, it's, oh my God. We laughed, we cried. It was so good. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really love when you guys message me about things that resonated with you or questions that came up while listening, or even just when you send me pictures of you listening to the podcast. Like, I grabbed my coffee and I'm listening. I love it. I love that. It just, I really do get such a kick out of it. I say it all the time, but I really, truly love connecting with you. So reach out, ask me the questions, tell me the things, share the stories. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate the podcast and give it a follow and share the episode with a friend who may benefit. Connect with me on social media for more updates and insights. And as always, stay mindful, stay focused, and keep believing in yourself. Until next time, keep on dreaming big and living your best life. I will see you in the next episode.